It never gets old.
No. You have to smile at it every time. I mean, especially like when we're looking at each other, like there's no eye contact break when we do it.
It's almost uncomfortable.
So, yeah, a little bit. But what makes me smile?
Kind of a little wonky. Welcome back for another fantastic movie review. This time, we owe thank you to...
Bruce.
Muncie.
Yep, Bruce Muncie. Thank you so much,
Yes.
man. Appreciate you.
We decided that...
Told you we're going to do it.
We decided your suggestion was the best one to go with. That's not to say that others we wouldn't. It's just...
Can't right now.
This happened to be the free one.
Well, and also, we already owned it.
The free one.
Whatever. It wasn't free to begin with.
Anyway, before we get into all of that, there are a grand total of 32 gloriously long days left until Halloween.
Yes.
Yay! And to say goodbye to the wretched month that is September, bringing us in full circle back to this spooky month. Shots! Goodbye, September.
I got these really cool new mugs, or new shot glasses, little skeleton hand grabbing onto there. Thought that was pretty neat. So.
I thought that was a 50-50.
Well, I mean, it was like a 30-70. Hot. At least it was chilled this time. Last time we made the mistake of waiting till the end of the video and then forgot. And so then we took it off camera. And I mean, I don't really mind my warm versus like cold like beer. I prefer like my beer warm. But liqueur needs to be chilled.
It was most vile, to say the least.
Especially vodka, it needs to be cold.
Vodka.
Anyways.
All right, Dreke.
I'll kill you.
On to the movie review.
So,
we've opted to do the 1978 cult classic.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yes. In which didn't start out as a cult classic. Like,
No.
it was horribly looked upon.
What cult classic starts out as like just...
And honestly, like in my opinion, in the 1970s, we tried to actually avoid the 1970s.
We veer from the 70s big time because a good, what would you say, about 75% of those movies have no plot?
No plot. They're long dialogue with little, like...
Very little action.
Yeah, or suspense even for that matter. Like, it's all dialogue. In which, don't get me wrong, everybody loves a good story, but... You gotta have something in between the dialogue.
You can't be sitting there watching a movie just going, and then?
And then, which, and
Oh.
Blood and Donuts.
Don't do it.
Blood and Donuts.
Don't do it.
If what year was that? Was that?
That was late 80s.
Okay, so...
Uh-uh.
We were going to do Blood and Donuts because we're like reading the description and we're like, oh,
It
this
sounded
sounds
pretty cool.
amazing. And then we got, the suggestion for Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, but then we watched Blood and Donuts and
There's no plot.
there is literally, it's like that vampire one.
The vampire happening.
The vampire, there was nothing throughout the entire movie, and then it ends, and we're both sitting there like with like popcorn, like,
Dude, the entire
was done.
We'll do that one another time. This time,
Yes.
the director John DeBello. Ooh, that's fun to say.
DeBello. Kind of rolls off the tongue.
Delivers just an atrocity of cinematic joy. Starring Sharon Taylor, David Miller, and George Wilson.
Yes.
The gross revenue of the movie was $5 what was it? $567,000.
Yes, but the original budget was only 90,000. So
An estimate.
in which was backed by the family members of the cast and crew.
Yep.
During the entire process of making the movie, in which so that gross amount what they profited was actually pretty decent in 1978. I mean that's
Well, that I don't think that was actually in 78 that they grossed that. I believe that's over time.
It would have been over time, but still.
And it still seems a very small number to me.
Yes, especially since like a movie that we just watched, the Aquarium of the Dead, that had a budget of 70 to 90 million.
It was one of those made for sci-fi movies, like the Sci-Fi Channel.
I'm gonna do a TikTok on this movie.
Oh my!
It's horrid.
My brain cells. I could hear my brain cells committing ritualistic suicide as this movie went on.
Goosebumps had better actors and dialogue than this movie. Just saying.
2 grown adults jump on Netflix. That's us. We're adulting.
We're adulting.
Which is basically, we're just left unsupervised to do all kinds of stuff. And frankly, that's kind of dangerous.
Weird stuff. Anyways.
The Goosebumps TV series was more entertaining than a $90 million budget movie made for the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yep. It was, like, we watched it, and they kept running from things that weren't ever shown till like almost the end.
You just see them running, and they're standing there oh my God, it's the otters.
But then you don't get to see them.
Yeah, you don't, or the electric fence.
Yeah, that they literally have all this space. I know we're not talking about this movie, but they have all this space from the fence to walk away, keep away from the fence, and they decide to be like literally within inches from it.
Oh. But we digress.
Anyway, sorry.
We digress.
Rant.
Oh, boy. So it did develop one hell of a strong following.
Eventually,
And it birthed 3 more movies. Return of the Killer Tomatoes in 1988.
Yes.
Killer Tomatoes Strike Back in 1990. And Killer Tomatoes Eat France in 1991.
Now, I have only seen the Return of the Killer Tomatoes. I have not seen the other 2. If I remember correctly.
We did watch the second one at one point.
Yes.
I prefer the second one. And I've heard that from many people that the second one is better. That's where they bring in Dr. Gangrene. And
I vaguely remember the second one. I mean, we watch so many movies throughout the week. I mean,
it's astounding the amount of television that I watch.
Well, it's not just television though. I mean, it's a specific genre and a specific type of movie setting. I mean, we probably watch, I would say, at least 14
and up.
14 and up, cult classic or / horror or any of that genre each week.
Yeah.
It's a lot of movies.
It really is.
I don't particularly remember watching this one. Like, I remember bits and pieces, like when she mentioned it. That was unnecessary.
I know, we could have totally have watched it sober.
Whatever.
So, if it wasn't enough to birth, additional movies, there was also a cartoon, which my co-host was completely shocked at. Cartoon came out in 1990. It lasted a grand total of only 2 seasons.
I was only 3 when it came out, so...
There's that age difference. And despite sharing its title with the original Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, which was done in 1978, the cartoon series actually shares a plot and characters with the sequel, Return of the Killer Tomatoes, which was in 1988. There was even a Game Boy game, and it spawned little action figures and toys.
Now, I do remember the Game Boy game, because that was more in my, like young kid type setting when my sister had a Game Boy and I didn't.
We know who the favorite
was. Even though I was a gamer, whatever, won't hold it against...
You're the baby of the family, though, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. See? We've pushed that little stereotype out the window. The baby of the family isn't always the favorite.
No, but I stole that son of a bitch any chance I had a fucking chance.
Now, when you look back at it, seeing cartoons the way we have them now, and I'll admit, some of our cartoons are kind of cool looking.
Yeah.
Lots of CG animation.
Well, yeah, but they're very smooth compared to the way we grew up, where everything was very rough edge.
Real jerky looking.
Jerky.
So if you were to look at it now, you'd be like, oh my god, what's this crap? Well, there's some cool factoids behind it. This cartoon was one of the earliest animated series to use computer animation extensively.
Yes.
The second season utilized primary cell drawings, images manipulated and animated by the computer.
Yes.
In addition, CGI generated objects. I apologize, I can't fucking talk today. And there goes the first F-bomb.
Oh!
Spank me. Airplanes and stuff like that were done as CG animation. That's actually kind of a pretty big deal.
Right, exactly.
It's neat because you can see how far all of our animation has come. Woo, that thing was strong.
It wasn't that bad.
I'm getting the tongue tingles.
Oh my gosh. Amateur.
Anyways, just a little touch of trivia.
Yes. So, amongst the many glorious scenes throughout this movie, which...
This one's actually one of my favorite scenes.
Yes, in which I was telling Tara, like, this movie jumps around so much, so
It ping-pongs.
Yeah, and which I kind of ping-pong when I'm talking about movies from start to finish, but this one ping-pongs so much that I can't do that I generally do. I'm usually the narrator from start as the movie progresses to the end. I can't do that with this movie because there's so much going on. However, this particular part of the movie, which I called out, actually.
You did.
Without knowing that this was a real thing.
You did. So, in the beginning portion of the movie, there is a helicopter crash that, you see it crashing in the background. And of course, when you first watch it, you're sitting there thinking, wow, that's pretty good stunt work.
Right.
It's not stunt work.
Nope.
The helicopter crash in the early scenes was unintentional.
Completely real.
The tail rotor blades accidentally hit the ground, causing the helicopter to spin out of control.
Nobody was hurt. And actually,
at least not seriously.
One of the police officers off scene, like way off scene, ended up becoming slightly injured, but nothing crazy.
So debris and such narrowly missed the police officers. The pilot received minor injuries.
Yes.
And after being pulled from the wreck, Jack Riley and George Wilson, who are both, starring in the movie, they ended up ad-libbing the remainder of the scene as the wreck was set on fire. And this ad-libbing is some of it's snarky commentary.
It's so...
He had said something about, what was it? Tomatoes can't do this. Yeah, well, they can't do that either, and yet it happened.
Right.
The ad-libbing is amazing. The crash itself cost the crash of the $60,000 rented helicopter used up more of the budget than all other aspects of the film combined.
Now, if you remember how much of a budget they had for this movie, that helicopter back then, which is now a $500 rental in today's world, cost them $60,000.
That's insane.
That is crazy.
Oh.
And therefore, the majority of the cast and crew's family members put forth their own money to help fund the rest of this movie because it was so inspiring that because back then it's so jokester throughout the entire movie.
The whole thing is so slapstick, and I think that's why I do.
Exactly.
If it didn't have that Naked Gun, Fatal Instinct kind of appeal to it,
right,
I think I might not have liked it. It reminded me a lot of the movie Airplane, and it really had the feel of a movie that was coming from Tromaville Productions. Tromaville does things like The Toxic Avenger.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Have I had you watch Toxie with me before? I don't think I've had you sit down and watch it.
I thought we watched that on when I first moved up here. I thought we watched that.
We may have to sit down and rewatch some Toxic Avenger. I personally like the Tromaville movies. A lot of people say they don't care for them because they are very over-sexualized. Very, it's like borderline porn. Well,
Like heavy
really,
metal.
it's like really bad porn. You know, like voyeurism. 15-year-olds don't know what they're doing kind of porn.
It's not the porn I watch.
But it's hilarious. It is absolutely hilarious. I love the Toxic Avenger movies. Tromeo and Juliet is one of my favorites. But out of everything that they've done, I personally think that Terra Firma, if you haven't seen it, Terra Firma, done by Tromaville Movies, best ever. There's something about it that it's like that train wreck you just can't look away from. Moving on.
So there's a scene in the movie in which this, to me, is the most famous scene of the movie because anytime I hear Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, I automatically think of The Small Room.
Oh my god!
That's the first thing I think of. Now,
Their military meeting.
Now, this is done in a high school, right?
I believe they said it was done in a room in a high school.
This room is so small that they are literally crawling over the tables. 8 grown men that have to
it's
wedge,
hilarious.
and they all fit into their chairs.
The best part about it, though, and I don't know if you picked up on it yourself, but as I'm watching that scene, I instantly get that feeling of going to a parent-teacher meeting.
Yes.
And you're trying to sit in the
little
tiny
kid
kid
chairs.
seats.
That's exactly what it is.
That is exactly what it felt like. You're sitting there in the tiny kid seats trying to wedge your legs up underneath the tiny table.
Why would they make you sit in the...
You're trying to have this like conversation with your
intense
child's
conversation,
teacher.
but your chair barely meets your ass.
Yeah, and the worst part is it doesn't matter if the feedback you're receiving from said teacher is positive or negative. You feel ridiculous. Like, how I couldn't take a parent serious sitting across from me in the little chair.
Well, you sat in the big chair.
Well, they sat, yeah. Well, not all the time. Not all the time.
No,
Sometimes they
not
sit
all
in
the
the
time.
little chair with you,
Yeah.
and you're just sitting there wondering, is your butt cheek falling asleep too? Because my butt has been hanging off the sides of this, and I'm not really all that big.
Or who's going to make the first joke?
Yeah,
Because
it's...
I have been that parent where it's like...
I'm 135 pounds, and when I sit in those chairs, my butt hangs over the edges. I've seen some of these teachers. There's a lot more butt than mine hanging out, and you know it's falling asleep. Moving on.
So, in this room, the scientist, which happens to be a Korean... Japanese?
There is a Japanese man who is one
man.
of the scientists talking about a robot, I believe it is.
Yes, the robot that goes up and he goes to do his presentation, which then he knocks over this picture of
The USS Arizona, which, anybody who knows their history,
Pearl Harbor.
the USS Arizona was sunk in Pearl Harbor by the Japanese.
So in this small room, this picture just happens to land into an aquarium and sinks. So it's these kind of puns throughout the entire movie that make this movie very unique.
And that's a tasteless joke that would have been attacked by cancel culture.
Absolutely.
What's more funny about this particular character and why he was one of my favorites, they mocked the kung fu type movies that are translated into English. They made him sound like he was being voiced over.
Yep.
When I saw it for the first time, I think I was like 11, 12 years old, and I didn't get the half of it. When I watched it again in my 20s, I lost my shit.
Right.
It was hilarious, but I hadn't discovered how much I really loved those, kung fu movies where you see the wires and they're flying.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't discovered how much I love those movies.
Well, you know me, I'm old school claymation style. I love my claymation movies.
Yes.
Old and new.
He would have loved Gumby as a kid.
I did love Gumby.
Oh, did you catch the Gumby cruise?
I
I
did.
thought you were too young for Gumby.
No, I did enjoy Gumby.
My bad. I just committed ageism.
Also, Moral Oral. I also enjoyed Moral.
Love Moral Oral. Awesome show. Funny as heck. All right.
Anyway,
so there's a scene later on in the movie where a giant tomato, which all the big tomatoes and stuff were made out of foam, painted foam.
Yep.
He is able to avoid hearing the atrocious puberty love song, which, by the way, was performed by Matt Cameron, who would later go on to be the drummer for Soundgarden and Pearl Jam. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's who performed Puberty Love. Apparently, this song offends the tomatoes.
Yeah.
This tomato...
To make their ego from this to this.
Uh-huh.
No idea why.
This tomato...
It reminds me of
figured it out, apparently.
It reminds me of Mars Attacks when they play that song and it makes their brains explode. Kind of the same thing.
I'm calling you. Yeah.
Such a good song.
I missed all those notes. I apologize. I am not a musician or a singer.
I don't sing.
Anywhoots. So, this tomato has earmuffs. Turns out those earmuffs...
that are huge!
...were bright green toilet seat covers. Yeah, bright green toilet seat covers attached by like a rope.
And in 1978, remember how fashionable green was.
Oh my God, the hotel room!
The green hotel room, when they're wearing blue suits, you have your special agents that go through, and we're not going to get into the special agents, because if you haven't seen the movie, you need to watch it, because the special agents in the movie are great.
I'm sorry, but who out there has not seen this movie?
I mean, there's got to be some. There's got to be some.
You hadn't seen it until this past year, so...
There's gotta be some.
Fair enough. We're not worthy.
Some people are sheltered on certain time periods of their life. Give everybody a break. You gotta give people a chance. Anyways, watch this movie.
Yeah.
I am...
Remember, the best bargains in town are at Sunnyvale Furniture, 173 East Main Street, just south of the Mervyn exit. Everything must go. If you've seen the movie, you've officially just understood.
You would know what's going on there.
At the end of the movie, everybody meets in the stadium.
Yes.
Or at least whoever's left in the San Diego area.
That are crazy, as they put it in the movie.
And these people were able to pick and choose whatever they wanted to wear, which is why you saw someone dressed as Groucho Marx.
Oh, I mean, they had,
They had both the
guy.
Marx Brothers, Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes, that's what it was.
I mean, you see... Yes, and Leatherface, which it was a very bad attempt at Leatherface, but we got it.
We recognized it.
Many. In the credits, the crowd at the stadium is credited as every screwball in San Diego County.
Yep.
That's absolutely fantastic.
I'm giving this a 3 out of 5.
I'll give it a 2.
Just because the 3 out of 5 for my reasoning is that it had its great potential.
It had its moments.
But
the puns, the snarkiness. I really liked a lot of that.
But you get lost in between those moments.
Because there are some times where it's like, what is it, Greta? The swimming, the Olympic swimmer, her death. Now, the steroid O's was funny.
Yeah, because she's an athlete. Steroids.
And it actually looked a little like Bruce Jenner on the front of it, because Bruce Jenner had done, I believe it was for Kellogg's.
Yes.
or bran flakes or some crap
So
like
there's
that.
a little in between spots like that just were like, oh, it's funny, but it was kind of a time filler. So I'm giving it a 3 out of 5. I'm actually glad that you gave it a 2 out of 5.
I am
5.
going to say 2 specifically because I'm not saying I don't like the first one.
No, yeah, but I haven't seen the rest of them, so I can't give that complete judgment.
I
I'm going off the first
really
one.
like the second one. I really liked the second one. And the third one wasn't bad. Now, the fourth was just pointless. It was awful. I mean, again, like the first, it had its moments, and Attack of the Killer Tomatoes came back full circle. It had its moments, but it just didn't quite make the cut, so I'm giving it a 2.
Fair enough.
So, thank you, Muncie, for giving us the suggestion to do Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Appreciate it. Cult classic. We like it.
Yes, we are always checking the commentary to see if anybody else has given us any additional, ideas. We will do cult classics. We will do,
Absolutely.
really old, really new, however you want to iron it.
Yep.
And also, please come check us out on TikTok and come see us on Facebook.
Gore to be gore. Now, if you're looking for a YouTube channel, because we know a lot of people on Facebook may be searching on the YouTube, you have to make sure that you go to channel Gore to be Gore movie reviews. You have
Make
to
sure you put movie review.
Yes. But otherwise, TikTok, Gore to be Gore, Facebook page, Gore to be Gore. So we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much once again for coming back and listening to us ramble like absolute utter idiots.
Always.
Oh, it's so nice to have a hobby.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much. And every single one of you little darlings have absolutely pleasant nightmares.